Welcome to MissouriNet.com. I'm Bill Pollock. We're getting close to game week here for the Missouri Tigers at Tennessee. Always a tough place to play, and maybe a little bit tougher now. I think maybe this was one of those games early on in the schedule where you maybe looked at this and said, well, this is a sure win. I'm still kind of leaning that way. I like the way the Missouri Tigers defense is playing, but Tennessee's kind of turned some things around, and so we bring in Daniel Lewis, who joins us from RockyTopInsider.com. Daniel, we talked with you earlier in the year. Glad to have you back now as we get ready for this matchup. What's been the change in the last couple of weeks as to the turnaround, I guess, if you will, for this Volunteers football team?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of factors that go into it, but the biggest one, just comes from the quarterback position, and that's Joshua Dobbs. For your listeners who maybe aren't as familiar with him and his situation, he was a guy who he played some as a freshman. Last year, he actually started at Missouri. That was his first career start. He did some good things in that game. He had 285 yards of total yards. He turned the ball over 3 times, and that was really hurtful to Tennessee in that game. But he's a guy who, at the beginning of the season, he didn't have a great fall camp, didn't get off to a great start throwing the ball. Tennessee had senior Justin Worley, a guy who had a little more experience, so he won the quarterback competition out of camp. That definitely made sense at the time, especially with Dobbs struggling. Worley began to struggle some, as the season went on and competition got a little bit tougher. And then he went down with a shoulder injury against Ole Miss. Tennessee went with their backup, Nathan Peterman, against Alabama. He wasn't effective the first couple drives. They went to Joshua Dobbs, and it's just been a whole different story since then. He's stepped up. He's a mobile guy. He can run the ball. He's been inconsistent throwing at times, but he's got a really good arm. He's made some really big throws for them. So Tennessee was down 27-0 against Alabama in that game. Dobbs kind of let it come back, got him back to within a score in the second half. Alabama went on to win that game. Then Tennessee goes to South Carolina with Joshua Dobbs, plays really well on offense, pulls out a comeback win there. Just throttles Kentucky last week, 50-16. So, the offense has really been ignited since he's been in there. Jalen Hurd, the running back, is playing really well. And the offensive line, which isn't very good, is getting help from Dobbs. Dobbs is moving around, avoiding sacks, and that's helping the team out as well. Defense has been a little inconsistent. They're good against Kentucky, not so good against South Carolina, so we'll see where they are. Also, as you guys probably know, a lot of off-the-field issues going on with this team, and that's going to be interesting to see how that plays in as well. But in terms of the turnaround, Dobbs has been huge. Just the offense having a little life and being more multi-dimensional has been the biggest thing for Tennessee.
Yeah, and you talk about the offense picking things up here. 50 points against Kentucky last week, 45 in the overtime game at South Carolina. And there might be some Mizzou fans watching this and say, okay, yeah, but that's South Carolina and Kentucky. Well, I'll remind you, Mizzou only scored 21 at South Carolina and 20 against Kentucky. So Tennessee can certainly put some points up against those defenses that we saw. Now, I want to take you back to an article that you did, Daniel, on RockyTopInsider.com. Let me call this up here. And you talk about, obviously, it's senior day, but you also mentioned that it's also step-up day for the Volunteers, and you mentioned some off-the-field issues. Can you kind of take our fans through some of the issues that the Volunteers are dealing with there?
Yeah, a lot of things going on off the field here. At least 3 pretty key players, starters, are not expected to play for Tennessee in some regard. The most notable right now is A.J. Johnson. He's Tennessee's leader on defense. He's had 100 tackles for 3 straight seasons. That hadn't been done at Tennessee since the 1970s. He's kind of the emotional and physical leader of that defense. If your listeners have been kind of keeping up with the news and what else going on, it's a developing situation. The police has been investigating an alleged rape situation that involved him and another reserve defensive back, Michael Williams. No charges have been filed at this point. It's still in the investigation stage. Kind of what we've heard is it's going to be kind of up to the district attorney, what goes forward with that. So that story hasn't completely played out. But what we know for sure is that A.J. Johnson and Michael Williams are both suspended indefinitely, and it would be very surprising at this point if we saw them on the field. So that's going to be a big adjustment for Tennessee. They're probably going to start a true freshman named Jakob Johnson. He's actually German by descent. He moved over here a couple years ago, and he's a really good athlete, really talented guy, but he's still kind of putting it all together, and I think they're going to lean on him a lot at inside linebacker. So that'll be one big adjustment. He's someone that's going to need to step up. Safety Brian Randolph, also a guy who kind of sets the defense. He's kind of the quarterback of the defense back there in the defensive backfield. He's going to be suspended for the first half due to a targeting ejection against Kentucky in the second half, so that's going to be another big loss. So A.J. Johnson kind of makes the calls for the defensive front. Randolph in the back, and Tennessee's not going to have that for at least some of the game, in Randolph's case. So that's going to be a huge adjustment. The missing starting center, Matt Crowder, as well. In all likelihood, he's been listed as doubtful with an injury as well. So a lot of adjustments. A lot of guys need to step up for Tennessee.
I look at the depth chart here, and, I see a lot of sophomores, redshirt freshmen. This is a young team. And, I remember talking with John Osborne, who, of course, is a part of your website. And, he said, Butch will get some recruitment in here. He's going to get some guys, and, in a couple of years, they're going to be good. So this team is really young.
Absolutely, and they're getting even younger this week. But, the guys I just mentioned, with A.J. Johnson likely being out and Jakob Johnson, a true freshman, stepping in there, you already got a young defense, and then one of your true kind of senior leaders, you replace him with a freshman for a lot of the game. And then at safety with Randolph out in the first half, they're replacing him with a true freshman, Todd Kelly Jr. as well. And just the opposite, when I studied Missouri, I was impressed with how many veterans were out there, on both sides of the ball. A lot of redshirt sophomores, juniors, seniors. That's just not something that Tennessee has a lot of. They play a lot of young guys, a lot of guys who are in their first, second, third year in the program. And I think that's one huge advantage that Missouri's going to have, definitely the more kind of, just experienced football team coming into this game. And I think Tennessee has a lot of talent really on both sides of the ball, but it's going to be interesting to see, in a game that Missouri has so much on the line, can Tennessee step up and get that win?
I thought that they played pretty well against Alabama, but you talked about there's a lot on the line here for Missouri. How do you see this game playing out? I mean, is this something that's close, or is this something where Mizzou's experience and just what they know is on the line, an SEC East title, do they just come in with too much for the Vols?
I see a close game. I really do. And I haven't even settled in on my final pick yet. I've been doing a lot of research this morning, actually, trying to kind of figure out which direction I want to go. I was surprised to see the Vegas line that opened with Tennessee actually favored. That surprised me a little bit. I think you can make an argument for a pick-em game, but then, with all these unknowns for Tennessee, I don't really know, how to gauge that and how to factor that into my decision-making. Tennessee's playing really well. There's no denying that, but how will these distractions affect that? Like I said, I think Missouri has more to play for. I think Missouri is definitely the more experienced team. History is on Missouri's side in this one. This is the team that, really wore Tennessee out last year. And, I think Tennessee certainly has a chance in this one. I've been leaning towards Missouri a lot of the week in making my pick in a closer game. And, I'm still kind of debating. We'll have our official predictions up on RockyTopInsider.com tomorrow, and I'm not 100% sure which direction I'm going to go because I think it's a really close game, and I think just the team that kind of makes the plays at the end, maybe protects the football a little better, doesn't make the crucial mistakes in this one, will win it, is kind of what I'm thinking about the game.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right with that. I think that's a great assessment. I think the problem now, I think people look so much at college football as offense, and so the score in this game may be a little closer than they expect because Missouri's offense has kind of struggled a bit, but I don't know if Missouri's defense is getting as much credit as they deserve. And it was they've had some close games. I mean, you look at the Kentucky score. The Kentucky score was kind of close, but when you get right down to it, though, Missouri's defense has dominated a lot of these teams. And so the score may be close, but what you're looking at in terms of field position and the way things play out, I think Missouri's defense has dominated quite a bit. So, but, you keep a game close, certainly like the Alabama game there for Tennessee, a play or two could turn that thing around, and that's all a team needs. So get these young guys that don't know any different. Sometimes they can pull off a shocker. We've seen enough of those in the SEC.
Absolutely. I'm really impressed with Missouri's defense as well. And that's what I mentioned. Just we've seen this Tennessee offense just click and click and click. And they did click some against Alabama, so they've done it. Some against a good defense. But this is the first time when, a top 5 SEC defense, a top 25 national defense, has had time to prepare for Tennessee with Joshua Dobbs at quarterback. And I'm just really interested to see how that matchup goes. It's going to be a huge test for Dobbs, huge test for Tennessee's kind of new look offense. And I'm really impressed. And I think Tennessee's key is they've got to stay ahead of the chains. They've got to run the football. They can't get in those third and long situations and let Golden and Ray just come after them because Tennessee's offensive line playing better, but it's still not very good. Still a weakness on this team, and I think even with Dobbs' mobility, those guys could really create some big plays for Missouri if Tennessee's in third and long, unless those defensive ends really get after it. So I think that's going to be a key for Tennessee as well.
Daniel Lewis from RockyTopInsider.com joining us to give us some insight on the Volunteers as they try to become bowl eligible in the second year under Butch Jones. They're going to be an exciting team, not only to watch the rest of this way up, but the next couple of years they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. Daniel, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you joining us as always, and we'll catch up with you soon down the road.
Sounds great. Thanks, Bill.
Yep, thank you, and thanks for watching us at MissouriNet.com.